Hi everyone, welcome to today's podcast. This is your host Satish. Thanks for joining in. And this podcast is all about technology trends, AI for retailers and manufacturers. Today we are joined by our guest Cheryl Thompson. She is the founder of Cheryl Thompson Advisory Group. She started her career with Ford as an apprentice, and with her learnings and artwork, she grew into an leadership role in manufacturing industries with Ford and American Axle. She also led many prototypes operations globally with American Axle. She has founded and ran a manufacturing industry association called CADIA. It's an association that helps manufacturers out to grow, and it's an 70. There were 70 members in that organization, and she is now advising lot many manufacturing companies around how to use AI in a better way. And our tagline is leadership is always skill, and AI is the edge. And she is someone who learned technology from a manufacturing background, and here we are there. Cheryl, thanks for joining in.
Thanks for having me, Satish. It's good to be here.
All right, sounds good. Let's get into our topic of this episode is around before you make an hire, you have to look in the eye with the eyes of AI lens. So
Yes.
let's get into that. But before we dive into about AI and other topics, I also was wondered, you have so much variety, like varied background experience, specifically in manufacturing and founding an association. What led to all of these things? Why? What is the hunger for doing these many things?
Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
Many interests. I kind of fell into manufacturing. When I was in high school, I was all prepared to go to college to do something
Mhm.
with computers. It
Mhm.
was in the 80s and computers were just kind of coming on board. And I ended up getting pregnant right out of high school. And I was waitressing, and my dad, who was an engineer at Ford Motor Company, said, "Hey, if you're going to
Okay.
waitress, why not try Ford?" So I applied. They hired me on the spot. I started in the dish room, and
Mhm.
shortly after that, I got an opportunity to join an apprenticeship program, and it was for tool and die. And I had no idea what a tool and die maker did. I had no idea what the trades were. Satish, I thought I was going to make tools and die them. I had no idea.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's what I was thinking about.
then I learned what it was all about, and I loved it. The hands-on experience, being able to make something made me feel so powerful. And
Mhm.
just learning that technology, that the hands-on way is what led me into engineering. And so I think my always looking for something new came from that engineering. Just gave me a curious mind, and I'm always looking for that next thing. What's new, what's exciting? And that's kind of what got me into AI, having spent all that time in manufacturing. Right, AI has been around for a long time. When we
Yeah.
think about vision systems and machine monitoring and things like that, and quality, the introduction of the LLMs made technology or AI accessible for someone like me, right? I don't have a deep
Mm.
technical background. And when I started playing around with ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, and then went through some training, it was like I was wearing these new AI glasses, seeing opportunity everywhere. And I always tell people the only limit is your imagination on what AI can do.
That's true in many ways. And one thing is like you started an membership for manufacturers. You started an organization.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? How was that experience, and what made you
Yeah.
to start that?
Well, so my experience when I was in manufacturing, as you can imagine, I was one of the very few women.
Hmm.
And when I
Yeah.
started to see more women coming into the industry, this was probably about 2011, 2012 timeframe. I was struck by the competence and the capability of women. I had
Mm-hmm.
not been around a lot of women, and I didn't realize how isolated I felt. And so when I retired from Ford, I wanted to do something to help women and others who were underrepresented. So that is kind of what got me started. We had up to 70 members at one point,
Mm-hmm.
just helping people with leadership and culture and inclusion, and teaching them not to overlook those people who are underrepresented, undervalued, underestimated.
Mm-hmm.
And so that went really well for a while. And, politics, the political landscape has changed. So it made it more difficult to sustain that. But what I
Mm-hmm.
saw was, the opportunity for AI. I think that a lot of people opt out and think this isn't for me because I'm not technical. And,
Mm-hmm.
the thinking about the whole inclusion theme, I think it should be no one left behind in the age of AI. It's a very accessible tool. It's not something to be afraid of. And I think it can help us level the playing field by giving people that competitive advantage. So, when I was an engineer, I wasn't very technical. I was more, I would say I leaned more toward the people side. If I would have
Okay.
had AI back then, looking at a very technical document, I could have it make sense to me, and I could
Mm-hmm.
ask questions about something I didn't understand. So, I think that AI is going to help people learn faster, especially in this time of rapid change. I think that
Yeah.
when we think about how fast things are changing, organizations have to move faster than the pace of change. And I think AI can help them do that.
Yeah, right. So, why do you think that an organization should rethink about or restructure their organization before adding more people? Why do you think like that?
Yeah. Yeah, because I think a lot of the jobs were designed for the pre AI world, right?
Yeah.
A lot of tasks that can be done by AI. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
think about training materials. Like every company needs training,
Mm-hmm.
because when new people come in, we have to train them, we have to get them up to speed, we want to up level our people. Well, instead of having a team of trainers, now you can have somebody who maybe is in charge and holds the standard of how we do training. How do we write our single point lessons? How do we write our work instructions? How do we write our training materials? Now you can have an AI that does that, and
Mm-hmm.
your people now are the people that have the judgment, that understand what training needs to happen. So I think reorganizing, just kind of looking at that org chart and saying, okay, what are some things that are being done by people now, tasks, processes, outcomes,
Mm-hmm.
that we can shift over to AI, and how do we elevate those people? I'm not talking about getting rid of the people. We need the
Okay.
people, right? In
Yeah.
manufacturing, it's so hard to find talented people. So it's about elevating those people to other things like mentorship,
Mm-hmm.
innovation, growth. Myself, I used to have somebody that worked for me named Greg, and he was an expert in surface finish. I had
Oh.
tooling and gauging at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about Greg, he spent a lot of time answering questions. Everybody would say, hey, Greg, how do I do this? How do I do that? He had 40 years of experience. If I could have taken all of that knowledge that was in Greg's head and
Okay.
put that into an AI, the Ask Greg AI
Mm-hmm.
for surface finish, I can now free Greg up to mentor younger engineers and to really help understand like all those things that aren't written down. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I think people should take a step back, and things are changing so fast right now. AI, we've got agentic AI now as well. So many things can be automated. And I think we just have to take a step back and think about what is work going to look like in 1 year, in 3 years, in 5 years, and redesign our thinking around it.
Mm-hmm. That if you take any manufacturers, they tend to think that AI is more of technology side,
Yeah.
and everything is something computer team will handle it. So, how do you think this kind of new thinking? Do you think people will adopt, or how does that they can bring into their culture?
Well, there's a lot of backlash to AI right now, and I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people are afraid of it. They maybe used it one time and or used it for an email or to summarize something, and maybe AI lied to them. We know that if you're
Hmm.
not using AI properly, you can get a bad result. But I
Yes.
encourage people to start at home. So I'll give you an example. I just moved recently and consolidated two homes, and so I finally got organized. I have
Mm-hmm.
all of my pens in one place. I have all of my highlighters in one place. I'm thinking about my office right now, and I got this idea. I'm like, oh my goodness, while I have everything fresh in my mind and I know where everything's at, I should probably create my own custom GPT that will help me find everything. So I opened up Chat GPT, I put it in voice mode, and I walked around the house and I narrated, hey, where are all of my pens? Where are all of my highlighters? Where are my batteries? And I
Mm-hmm.
went through every single room in the house, every drawer, every bin, every cabinet, the
Mm-hmm.
garage, the crawl space, all of that. And ChatGPT put it into a searchable spreadsheet. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have to create the spreadsheet. And then I put that on the back end of custom GPT. And now I just can open up that GPT and say, hey, where is that soup pan I was looking for? Right. And
Mm-hmm.
automatically. So now, I've created that for myself at home. It's useful because how
Mm-hmm.
many of us don't remember where we put stuff? In fact, I
Mm-hmm.
called it, where'd I put that?
Mm-hmm.
And now I can be a little bit more creative and think, wow, if I could do that at home, how can I apply that to work? So you think about a manufacturer, right, who's got a inventory. Maybe they don't have a fancy enterprise system to help them with their inventory. This can be something that can be done at a very small shop for a tool crib or just a very small shop. So getting them thinking about how they use it at home and how could I apply this at work. So when I think about small companies or manufacturers who think, oh, AI is just the technology piece, I want them to think about the people side. I talked about the training already.
Mm-hmm.
Building training, because some companies sell training.
Mm-hmm.
Now all that knowledge isn't living in one person's head. They can train multiple people to deliver that training. And maybe they think about additional training opportunities that they can sell. So that's a revenue opportunity for them. When we
Mm-hmm.
think about manufacturing, where the turnover is high, we're always bringing on new people. So creating an AI that helps onboard somebody. So what does the new hire do in the first 30, 60, 90 days? What does the buddy do? What does the hiring manager do? What does
Mm-hmm.
the HR person do? And what are the signs that somebody is struggling, right? All of those things can be built into an AI agent. The
Mm-hmm.
knowledge transfer, knowledge capture, I talked about that with my Ask Greg. But,
Mm-hmm.
I used to have a boss, his name was Phil, and
Mm-hmm.
I knew how he thought. And so when I did a presentation, I would always make sure that I was asking myself the questions I knew he would ask. But others would come in and I would think, why didn't they anticipate that question? Like I would
Okay.
make a little AI now and say, what would Phil say or what would Phil ask? So, that's
Mm-hmm.
another use case. Thinking
Mm-hmm.
about manufacturing, we have processes. We have to have processes, otherwise, we're going to have quality issues. So, using AI to write that process, and again, just by narrating, how are things really done? And then AI will put that into a process. And if you've got an engineering change, you can run that into the process and say, hey, should I be concerned? Is anything going to change in this process? So AI recognizes patterns as well. So, I mean, I could go on and on, Satish, but
Yeah,
those are a
I
few
understand. I
things.
understand. It's a cultural thing. It's not
Yeah.
a simple answer. People can answer it, but I just want to get on. But the other thing also you talked about walking an operation with an AI glasses on, seeing
Hmm.
more like how you can optimize this, how you can reduce it. Can you talk
Right.
about what's your concept about the wearing an AI glasses?
Yeah, well, just like that example I was talking about at my home,
Mm-hmm.
that has now given me some experience and I'm seeing things differently. The more and more you use AI, it rewires your brain. And so you're thinking differently when you run into a problem, when you run into pain. My automatic first thought is, how could AI help me with this? And so I think, that's when your brain starts rewiring like that, that is when you are starting to wear these AI glasses and you're seeing things you had not seen before.
Mhm.
So I think that is how somebody can start. It's to start at home.
Mhm.
When I do a training, I always start off by asking people, how are you using AI at work? And a lot of people start talking about, well, I use it to rewrite
Email.
an email, right? Or to understand a technical document or to summarize something, right? And then I'm like, okay, how are you using it at home? And I get a lot of DIY projects, troubleshooting, and things like that. So
Mhm.
getting people talking about how they're using it, and then they open up, and then they start talking about how AI was wrong.
Yeah,
I'm sure you've seen it. AI can
yeah.
hallucinate and it can sound very confident when it's doing so. And so, having that judgment is really important to know when to push back on AI. So I think the more experience you have with it, you just naturally develop these AI glasses where you start to walk around and you think, huh, I wonder if AI can help me with that, right?
Mhm.
Starting with the problem or the pain that you're trying to fix or a task that's on your plate. I always tell people to start with a to-do list. And what is on that to-do list that is draining your energy? What are the things people hate to do, the things that are repetitive? And
Mhm.
thinking about, okay, how do I automate this, or how do I bring AI into the picture?
I understand. And so let's assume, like in manufacturing, a company CEO wants to bring AI as an organizational thing. Where do they start? Like, should they start with setting up a team, or hey, so let's have a AI team, or start
Yeah.
with training? Where do they start something?
Yeah, I think a lot of companies start with governance committees, like putting a committee
Mhm.
together.
Yeah.
You're always going to have your fast adopters, your early adopters inside the company. Um, see who's interested in being a part of this committee. And I would start there. Absolutely talking about governance, right? We
Mhm.
want to have an enterprise solution. Yes, we can use ChatGPT at home. And I've seen that if companies don't have a policy in place, people could be hiding in the bathroom using
Mhm.
ChatGPT on their phone. We don't
Mhm.
want that. We want companies to have a policy in place, those guardrails established, governance in place, so that customer data is protected, so that it's
Mhm.
being used the right way. People know what is the proper use, what are improper uses, what data should never be put in there. So having the governance in place, starting to do some pilots and getting those early wins and talking about the results. Hey, what worked? What didn't work? What would we do differently? And then once you have something successful, how do we replicate that? How do we apply it to similar use cases? So, talking about the successes, the use cases, and the opportunities. And then the other thing I think we have to think about is the cost.
Mhm.
Right
Yeah.
now, we don't know where we're going with the cost of these things. Are the models going to stay subsidized like they are now, or are we going to have to start paying higher bills? Like myself, my favorite is Claude, but I also
Mhm.
use ChatGPT, and most of my clients use Microsoft Copilot, and so I have
Mhm.
to know all of those. And
Mhm.
Microsoft Copilot had brought out Cowork in its frontier model, and now
Mhm.
they've just changed that, and it is based on usage. So my cost of
Usage.
using that tool has gone up. Of course, there's licenses that need to be procured as well. And I was talking to a leader in a company, and he said, "Yeah, I'm looking at like a $500,000 cost hit to my cost center because
Mhm.
of all of these licenses." Right. So there's a
Wow.
lot to consider. And to your point of putting a team together, I think that's really smart. Getting people from different functional areas together, getting those early adopters, making sure you've got that psychological safety so that people can push back and
Mhm.
ask questions and play devil's advocate, right? We need all the voices at the table.
Mhm.
And
Do,
and
do you think?
and go ahead.
No, no. My question was: do you think should we start on the use case or on the governance? Because governance is kind of, people would feel when they are using it, it will be restrictive, or the use case is something you identify it as you said, bring the people who are interested in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that you really have to do all at once. But I think once you start talking about the use cases, it gets people excited and
Mhm.
motivated to then start working on the things that's not so sexy of
Mhm.
working on the governance. Right? It's like,
Mhm.
hey,
Yeah.
look at this opportunity here, but the governance has to be in place to keep people out of trouble, right? I've heard
Yeah.
of some people that weren't using enterprise solutions, plugging things into CRMs and things like that. And that's when you can get into trouble. So the governance is highly important.
That's true. And what kind of projects or easy opportunities you have seen that was very effective? People should be successful with starting with the pilot AI projects. What's
Yeah.
your take on that?
Well, one of my favorite ones that I use, I use Claude. So I have a ton of Claude projects set up. I'll just call them workspaces because in Copilot, it would be an agent, in Gemini, it's a gem, and in
Mm-hmm.
OpenAI it's a custom GPT, but let's just think about Claude. So I have a marketing workspace set up.
Mm-hmm.
So it is my copywriter. It helps me write my LinkedIn posts. It helps me write my newsletters. It also helps me, with speaking opportunities. I've been able to create a skill and then
Mm-hmm.
automate that skill. So every Monday morning, it's searching for speaking opportunities for me, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that is an example. I also have a skill that's a newsletter, so it's looking through all of my transcripts, this AI, and it's like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
what would be some good topics for Cheryl's next newsletter? And
Okay.
the way I had to set that up is I put all my website copy in the back end. I put testimonials in there, my top social media posts, my testimonials, my values, my about me, and then I said, okay, give me 10 blog ideas. And
Mm-hmm.
then I took one of them and I said, okay, write me a 300-word blog. And then that's when you start going back and forth with AI saying, oh, I would never say that. We need to tweak this here. How would I rewrite these custom instructions so that I get this answer tone and, next time? So that's an example of one of my workspaces. So I have prompts, I have skills, I have automated tasks set up within that. But I also have one for sales.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about if I'm on a call, I can put the transcript in and say, how did I do on that call? Could I have done better? It's also loaded with objections, like how do I handle objections that people might have if I'm trying to sell a package to
Mm-hmm.
somebody. I also have one that's my leadership brain. So when I had my team, I had a team of 5, and I had all of our profile personalities in there, like our strengths finders, our Colby, our Myers
Mm-hmm.
Briggs. And when I had to have a conversation with someone, I would kind of like, hey, I have to have this conversation. So an example
Mm-hmm.
is, one of my team members is a um, very forward. Like she tells you what she thinks. She doesn't hold anything back. And so Claude was like, okay, you need to have this conversation. You should say this, but you're not going to because you don't like conflict. Right.
Okay.
So it's helping me prepare for the conversation, helping me become a better leader. And then I also have like a financial coach. It has, we all have our own money stories, our mindset about money.
Mm-hmm.
So that's there. And then I've got some frameworks for, top financial coaches, and then my true P&L. And it would help me make financial decisions about the business and my priorities and, where do I need to go? So that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of how companies can start thinking about using this.
Mm-hmm.
It's thinking about those key functional areas and how do you start to set up that workspace that has all of that knowledge. So think about somebody who may have to quote a job. You could have a whole workspace that's set up with past estimates, proposals. You get a new RFQ or request for quote, and you
Mm-hmm.
can refer back to past pricing, past proposals that were successful. So at least you have a starting point. There should always be a human in the loop. We still need that human judgment, but
Mm-hmm.
think
Yeah.
about all of that like manual, like
Mm.
non-value added work that could go into
Work.
something like that where you can have that AI assist and make it so much faster.
So, so in your opinion, the for manufacturers specifically, the sales is something definitely it would be very effective for
Yes.
manufacturing.
Oh yeah,
Okay. And
absolutely.
in terms of operations, you think prototyping or something you have seen anything they were pretty successful with the AI or anything like that in the process automation, or yeah, is there anything that you think that AI made big
Yeah,
difference?
I mean, I've heard of design agents being set up.
Hmm.
Thinking about FEMA's failure mode and elements analysis. Things like that. Putting in past um, tools like that, that can really help too on making a decision about design. What may I be missing here?
Hmm.
Thinking about a manufacturer, right? We all have lessons learned.
Hmm.
Put Loading up a whole workspace with all of the past lessons learned,
Hmm.
so that we're capturing all of that, and it can help us see patterns, so that if we're thinking about that engineering change, we can put it in there and see, is there something I should maybe verify before we make this change, or might I not be seeing, that it may pick up because it understands patterns so well.
And the other thing is you also talk about AI employee, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what is it like? Is it uh, everybody will be an AI employee, or can you talk about in detail? Is it
Yeah.
AI will
Well,
also be an employee?
I think we are going to be managing AI employees.
Mhm.
So, like
Okay.
some of the examples I was telling you, I have a skill that is set up as my newsletter. So I consider that a little mini AI employee.
Okay.
I used to have somebody that actually looked for speaking opportunities for me.
Hmm.
That is now my AI employee. I used to
Wow.
have somebody that did my copywriting, but now I'm managing those AI employees. So thinking
Okay.
about people who are inside of bigger companies, we're elevating their role so that now they are the holder, the keeper of the standard. But they've got AI working on a lot of things that they used to do that weren't so value add. And if I can free up that brain power, I've got
Hmm.
more opportunity for innovation, growth, revenue generating opportunities, relationships. I mean, you think about purchasing and supply chain. If you can free up all of that time that was spent with all of that paperwork and negotiation, now I can spend more time on relationships, which are really important. So I think that's the other thing. I think companies have to think about not only how am I going to reorganize my org chart, but what am I going to do with that free time? Like Satish, when I first got into AI
Yeah.
had like 6 or 7 things going at the same time, right? And my
Hmm.
brain couldn't keep up. And I
Hmm.
had to like slow myself down because I realized all that free time I made available, I was just filling it with more work. So we have to be very intentional about what are we going to do with our people now that they've freed up this time, and strategically think about how we want them to utilize their time.
Interesting. So, how do you think, and like, in manufacturers, CEOs think about this when somebody is asking for, hey, I need to add another five more employees? Should they think about this? Hey, go after this, implement it, and reduce it. That's how you do it. Make employees to do more work, or should they think about, um, let's not hire anybody, let's use our existing team? What should be their thought process in your opinion?
Well, it's hard to say not knowing the specific situation, but I do
Mhm.
think that before we do make additional hires, we need to have an AI strategy in place so that we know what are the
Mhm.
tasks, what are the outcomes, what are the processes we're going to hand over to AI.
Mhm.
And it could mean, like we'll take the example of training. You may have a need for a curriculum designer. Well,
Mhm.
do we really need to hire that curriculum designer because AI can do that for us? Maybe what we need is a strategist that's going to
Mhm.
help us make this curriculum designer within AI, much stronger, and
Mhm.
again, being able to look for those revenue ideas. I worked with a company that had some power lockout training that was very old. It was like 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And they were advertising the training as a 4 hour training, and it really only took them 2.5 hours to do it. So it's like, okay, we've got a mismatch here. So I was able to make that training more substantial, modernize it, make sure it was up to speed on all of the latest standards. And once they saw that, they started thinking about other training opportunities they could develop and sell. So that would be a revenue generating opportunity. And because they do power lockout, they have to have ECPL placards. And the other idea was, why don't we create an AI that can be a checker on this ECPL placard, so that, there's a lot of things humans miss. Let's run it through that first to see, did it catch any errors, and then the human can look at it. So I think it's just looking at the, how we're structured, how we're organized, um, asking the question, are any of these things, can they be completed by AI? How do we skill up our current team on AI, so that they can, understand the opportunity here as well.
Sure. And one thing I also know is that you have created AI employees across six different systems
Hmm.
for a manufacturers, like
Yeah.
training, onboarding, knowledge transfer, documentation, and shift communication, and program execution. So,
Yes.
where do you think which had the biggest impact for manufacturers for with these kind of AI? Is it all performed well, or something that is very effective for them?
Well, I think that in the beginning, there's probably they're going to slow down a little bit, because you have to train these AIs just like you have to
Mhm.
train employees, and they're going to be mistakes.
Mhm.
So I think that we have to account for that. We have to get free people up, and give them the time to learn. We have to think about culture. Culture. You mentioned it earlier. It's
Mhm.
really important. If I have a culture that doesn't have a lot of psychological safety, it's going to be more difficult to implement AI, because mistakes will be made. And if people are afraid of making a mistake, or they can't push back on the status quo, we're going to have a challenge. If we
Mhm.
have an organization that is very risk adverse, and manufacturing has always been risk adverse, we don't like change. Whenever we have a
Mhm.
quality problem, the first question that gets asked is, what changed?
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
thinking about that, very innovative versus, not taking risks. If a company is very top down hierarchical versus, more distributed, that's another thing to look at.
Mhm.
So there's a number of things to look at. So I think when manufacturers get started, it's an investment. Just like we have to invest in our people, we have to invest in these tools as well, train them, test them, and then keep iterating and keep improving. I know you're aware AI is changing so fast. There's a podcast I listen to called Everyday AI. And this
Mhm.
guy is talking for 30 to 45 minutes every day about all the new things that are coming out in
Yeah.
AI. It's
Mhm.
moving so fast. Like, I have
Mhm.
AI anxiety, because it's like,
Yes, yeah.
wow, all these new
You
things
can't keep
coming
up.
out. It's so
Yes,
hard to
you
keep
can't.
up. Yeah. So,
That's true.
I think it's important to have, somebody who's leading the strategic effort, who's in charge, that can make sure companies stay on top of things, so that they can stay relevant and competitive.
Mhm. What do you think about an employee mindset who sees that uh, the organization is adopting AI employee concept and there are so many things going to affect us? They
Hmm.
might be worried about the job safety, and that could be the reason people might say, "Hey, AI is now throwing only crap, not effective." You want the people to use it. They have to train the system, but they have at the back of their mind, they might always think the AI employee is going to replace me one day. So why would I need to do it?
Well, the genie's out of the bottle, the toothpaste is out of the tube, right? There's nothing we can do. It's
Okay.
here. It's here, and it's going to keep coming. And I think that AI is going to be the biggest career differentiator we've ever seen. And so I
Mm-hmm.
encourage people to take advantage of the learning, and
Mm-hmm.
realize it's going to help you learn faster.
Mm-hmm.
It's the doing the tasks, and the things that we do at work. That's never the value. The that value's in the judgment, and I think AI can help us get to that judgment quicker.
Hmm.
And knowing AI, you're going to stay more relevant. People say AI is going to take my job, and I always say, well, someone that knows AI is probably going to take your job. So,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, making sure you're staying on that cutting edge and learning. And I think companies aren't providing enough training for their company for their employees. So I think people should be learning on their own as well.
That's true. And do you think people should start, like companies should start doing training more before they launch this AI into the organization? Do you think that is the right approach?
I do. I do. I think that people should understand it. They should understand the risks. They should
Hmm.
understand what it can do. And there should be team conversations about it. So people are sharing what their experiences are. What mistakes did they make? What failures did they have? Right. If I always say, if you're not ready to throw your computer out the window, you're not trying hard enough. So I think that companies have to give employees the time and the space to learn. I think training is one piece of it, but being a
Hmm.
part of a community and actually being able to talk about it is the other piece that companies often miss. It's not just training. The other mistake I see companies make is they just keep assigning more work because they think, oh yeah, AI will help them do that, and
Hmm.
people are getting overloaded. So really listening to your people and getting that feedback is important as well.
I understand. And for many manufacturers, like companies leadership, generally they don't have time, and they have a limited budget. So
Hmm.
how do they think about all these things? They, again, you have to spend some time and train the system, and you might have built your own AI tool, but how somebody who doesn't have time and budget think about all these things? Where do they start, in your opinion?
Right. Well, I go back to the home thing, like using it for your personal life, that it's
Mhm.
$20 for your own little account, whether it's GPT or Claude. And I always tell people to, if you're going to work with AI, get a paid account and
Mhm.
in the settings, turn off that use my data to train the model, right? You
Mhm.
want to protect yourself. So I would say start at home, getting comfortable with it, knowing when you should push back on it, when you shouldn't push back on it, knowing that it's going to be an investment in time. So it's going to be an investment that will pay off. So eventually you're going to free up more time. Like I've never felt more clarity. I've never felt more organized and on top of things. So a lot of us have a lot going on and our brains get foggy and we have all of that overwhelm. It can really
Mhm.
help. I mean, the simple thing of connecting AI to your email and your calendar and getting a daily briefing. I mean, that is a big time save so that you know what possible conflicts are on my calendar. What do I need to get ready for? It can even coach you about, hey, I notice you schedule a lot of meetings on this day. Why don't you break things up? In fact, I went in to answer an email the other day, and I didn't recognize that AI had already written the draft for me. So,
Wow.
yeah, there's so much AI can do. So I think it's starting at home, understanding that it's going to be an investment, and recognizing that your company is not going to be able to survive or stay ahead if it's not investing in this. So just recognizing it's the price of entry right now with where companies are.
Mhm. Is there any organization in your view that has done or doing it well with this AI implementations? Any manufacturing unit or organization doing this?
I don't want to call anyone out specifically, but I think
Mhm.
there are many that are doing it very well, and it's all the things that we talked about: a governance committee, governance in place, training in place, the use cases, having those use cases identified. I'm There are some companies that haven't started. I see people in three buckets.
Mhm.
They have all the things in place and they're up leveling, upskilling their people, and
Mhm.
they are now trying to tie all of that AI usage, all the prompts, all the agents, all the skills back to the ROI. Then I see some companies that are trying to figure this all out. They're working on the governance, they're working on the cost, they're trying to understand where it should be used, where it shouldn't be used. Then I see other companies who haven't started at all and they've got things
Okay.
locked down. And that's when I think there's a bigger risk because people are going to use it underground anyways.
Mhm.
So I think that there needs to be some focus and attention paid to it.
Mhm. Is there any trait or organizational habits they generally follow? These kind of companies, if they adopt AI, they are going to see a significant improvement in their output or outcome, something like that. Have you seen anything like that?
I don't know that there's certain companies or industries. I think all can benefit. If you
Okay.
just think about some of the things we've been talking about, most companies have to worry about training. They have to worry about onboarding. They have to worry about standard operating procedures. So I think any company can benefit from it. I think solopreneurs, like right now, I'm a solopreneur, and
Mm-hmm.
you hear how many little AI employees I have running around.
Yeah.
So I think every company can benefit. It's just understanding where are those opportunities and also knowing when to pull back. We can't chase every new bright shiny object.
Yeah.
As we were talking earlier, things are changing and advancing every day, and
Mhm.
so you've got to bring some stability into it as well.
Mhm. Do you think like and each organization should have their own AI brain or something like that for their entire operations? Like you said, ask your employee something like that. Should it because all the knowledges are in the brains of some key leaders, right? So
Yeah,
should
I think
they build their own brain, something like that? Do you
I,
think?
th- I have my own. I have my second brain set up.
Mhm.
That's my
Okay.
my personal side. I have my business brain that is set up that has everything. I think every company should aspire to doing that. It's more difficult in a larger company to do something like
Mhm.
that, but I think teams. So if I think about, let's think about a big company like Ford Motor, right? They've got manufacturing engineering, they've got product development, they've got operations, they've got purchasing, etc. So maybe starting within the purchasing organization, thinking
Mhm.
about our purchasing brain. What are all of our standards? What are all of our specifications? What are all of our operating procedures? And then making that brain
Okay.
just on that so that organization can use that and continue to improve it over time.
I understand. What do you think in 5 years' time AI-led manufacturing or operations would look like?
Oh my gosh, if I knew that, I'd be on the beach retired somewhere.
Yeah.
It's so hard to say, right, Satish? I
Okay.
mean, things are changing so fast. I wouldn't
Mhm.
have imagined things were possible today 6 months ago, right? It's like
Mhm.
it my I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. I just know it's going to keep improving and we really can't know what's happening. So I always tell people it's like math class. You got to stay on top of things. Don't get behind. Pay
Mhm.
attention. Look what's happening because as I always say, it's that career differentiator. It's going to be what sets you apart. Not only makes you a better employee, but I think it makes you a better person. I use it for like if I have to have a tough conversation, or if
Mhm.
I just had something that bothered me, I'll talk to AI about it. So it
Mhm.
makes me a better human, a better leader, a better partner, a better mother, all that.
Interesting. And do you think like I listened to Elon's podcast and he said with AI and specifically with entering in manufacturing, it can create a world of abundance and because everything would come cheap and everything would become accessible to everyone. Do you think that's a reality if AI gets into the manufacturing and every organization adapts? Is that a possibility, you think?
I do think that. I mean, if I just look at my experience as a very small business owner, it has made things more accessible to me. I can do things I only dreamed of. As I said,
Mhm.
I'm not very technical. So some of the tools I've always wanted to use, like Notion, I don't know if you
Mhm.
use Notion. I looked
Mhm.
at that like 3 years ago, and my team was like, "Oh no, we don't understand it." Well, now like all of
Mhm.
these tools and technologies have their own AI embedded, and I can now do things I only dreamed of. So I do
Mhm.
believe that in this idea of abundance, it's going to make things more accessible. So the sky's the limit. And I think these smaller companies, because they have less restrictions,
Mhm.
because they are more innovative, they are going to lap the bigger companies that are not moving as fast. Right? They're going to
Mhm.
outperform them.
Okay, I understand. And one leadership advice that you would say, like something, hey, this is coming and you should do something. What would be your advice? Somebody who is listening to this podcast, manufacturing CEO or leadership
Yeah.
team.
Yeah, I would say start with the biggest problem that you have. What is the biggest problem you have? What's the pain you're having? And then you could ask AI, hey, I'm struggling with this. So let's say I'm having a problem with scrap. And
Okay.
I can say, hey, you are a quality expert. You have been able to come in and solve quality problems and save companies millions of dollars over the years, right? So give it that persona, then give it the context of what is the situation that you're facing. Hey, our scrap was 1%, it's gone up to 5%. We've looked at this, and this. We can't figure out what's going on. So give it all that context. Then give it the request of, here's what I need you to do. Give me 3 things that I can go look at and change today that are going to drop my scrap. And then end with, please ask me any clarifying questions. So starting with that problem, giving as much context as possible. I don't like to type because AI doesn't need as much context. I'll put it into voice mode and just talk. Sometimes I'm rambling on, and I don't know how AI makes sense of what I'm trying
Mhm.
to ask it, but it
Yeah.
does. So that would be one thing. The other thing I would say is just going into AI and say, this is my company, this is my role.
Mhm.
Give me 3 unfair advantages AI can help me with here and make me stand
Mhm.
out or make me be more competitive. Like, ask AI.
That's a great thing. And and one final question is about your tagline. You said leadership is a skill and AI is the edge. Is there anything that you want to add up on that, like for all the
Yeah,
leaders
like
listening to the
I would
podcast?
say leadership still matters. Like your
Mhm.
energy, how you show up, your judgment, your skills, your relationship skills, that's really, really important. So we still need the human. We still
Mhm.
need that, high vibe person who's the leader. That's front end, back end is AI. So don't lose
Okay.
the human skills. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. And Cheryl, thanks for your time. I hope our conversation is useful for people listening. And we'll connect with you in 6 months with so many
Oh,
new
yeah. What's going to
topics around
happen
this.
next?
Yeah,
Thanks for
nobody
having me,
knows.
Satish. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for connecting with us, Cheryl. Thank you.
Yeah.